A march for the playoffs continues as the Irish Hills look to close out the month of March with some madness of its own. Where tonight we welcome you to the 10th race of the 2021 Four-Wide Racing League Cup Series for the virtual Michigan International Speedway and virtual Brooklyn, Michigan, as we bring you live coverage right here on MaxSpeedTV. Happy to have you join us for yet again another Wednesday night full of racing action, where my name is Kenneth Bueno, up into the commentary booth right atop this Michigan International Speedway. And so far we have had a fantastic season full of different winners, full of interesting moments, and of course last week of what was the mayhem that ensued at the Martinsville Speedway. But tonight we open things back up. We head to a 2-mile track, much like the sister tracks of Auto Club as well, and we head to quite possibly one of the fastest tracks on this season. And once we have already breached in through, we're already at the halfway mark of the season here in 2021, or at least the regular season, that is, at about 18 races. So now we're inching closer and closer to these playoffs each and every time throughout. And at this track, we talked about what might have happened at Auto Club. We saw what happened at Auto Club, and here's the sister track at Michigan. And to get a better reference of where we are in the virtual world, we'll take a look at our track map with images courtesy of our friends at Google Earth. And you can take a look down to Brooklyn, Michigan, where you'll find the 2-mile Michigan International Speedway, and of course one of the staples in NASCAR super speedway racing, along with Auto Club, opened all the way back in the 1900s. And of course one of the staple big tracks that is full of fast action, full of pack racing, and also some strategic moves as well. Not really much to predict at a track like this also either. However, it definitely could pose for some fantastic racing and some, at least some maybe tough battles for the race lead as well, and maybe moving forward into the rest of tonight. But I did mention the playoffs at the top of this broadcast and what might come through as we inch closer to the playoffs in our regular season. And with that, we'll take a look at our current point standings, see exactly where everybody stands out after our first 10 races. Kyle Benson continues to lead the point standings without a win so far this season, 359 points to his benefit. He's racked them all up with consistent top 5, top 3 finishes as well, but he did extend that gap to Tyler Warner right behind him, so it's now 12 points. And in fact, it was a little bit lower than that, and the gap was much shorter. But look at the gap for third, closed in significantly. The 13 of Craig Launsager has pushed in now just 1 point behind Tyler Warner, and is also within striking distance of Kyle Benson should this race go in his favor. And remember the winner at Iowa a couple weeks back, Tyler Murray, currently sits in the 4th spot. But you look at just about the battle for about 5th on back, starts to separate very wildly from 8th around there, where Brandon Gillis is about roughly 40 points from Roman Long. So that's a big gap to really manage, and you have to start building that over the course of tonight's race. And of course, some drivers that have not made some starts. James Holzer, who is not racing in the series anymore, but has picked up 2 wins, including the one at a track that's very similar to this one at Auto Club Speedway. Brad Herman, a winner himself at Talladega and Chicagoland. And you see some notable drivers we've seen over the past couple of weeks. Ricky Rosner down in 14th, Pete Bruni down in 17th, Chris Massey down in 20th. It's just a handful of the drivers that currently are at least trying to grab some sort of a leeway in points and build that sort of momentum up. But at this point, qualifying is just about to close, and some of the drivers already making their way to at least the starting grid, or at least starting to find their way to this starting grid, at least to get ourselves under some green flag action. But there is also a battle, not only for points, not only for wins, but for cash prizes as well. Tonight we'll start the Dash for Cash qualifier, rather, which the top 4 that are eligible will be able to fight for that prize money in Atlanta in a couple of weeks' time, and they get to qualify right here at this racetrack. That includes a lot of drivers on this list, including Tyler Murray, Austin Reedy, Roman Long, Tyler Warner, Kyle Benson, Lucas Vizzuti, Matt Roberts, Steve Brunner, Ryan Steenbachers, Jaden Gimbel, Craig Launsager, Forrest Wynn, Richard Rico, Ricky Rosner, Chuck Munier, Dustin Webb, Brandon Banks, Debbie Hutchins, Pete Bruni, Christopher Bishop, Dustin Webb, and I believe 2 more drivers, and Ken MacArthur, and also Tristan Bailey, who are part of that fight for the Dash for Cash. Remember, top 4 in all of them, out of all of them, have to qualify at least high within each other, so then they can qualify for the one at Atlanta, be able to win that prize cash and everything that goes with it. But right now, you see the field is scrambled behind the iRacing official pace car, so it is our time to take a look at your current starting grid, see exactly where every driver and your favorite driver will be starting here tonight from the Irish Hills. Brandon T. Banks, a number 20 car, first time I believe we see him this season, sets the fastest time of them all, 38.795, first pole of this season, with Daytona winner Tyler Werner looking to grab in that points lead. He sets him off in the first row in the second position. Justin Mons in the 41 joins us for the first time this season in 2021. He'll line up third. Jaden Gimbel alongside him in the fourth spot. Points leader Kyle Benson will roll off just inside the top 5. Matt Roberts in the 16 will follow suit into row number 3. Row number 4, there's Ken MacArthur. Saw him, and he's one of the drivers eligible for Dash for Cash qualifier. Chuck Munier, or CJ Munier rather, in the 25 will be lined up right alongside. Tyler Murray will be 9th. Dustin Webb will round out your top 10. Iowa winner, you're looking at it right on your screen. Craig Lautensager starts in the 11th spot. Roman Long alongside, and Jonathan Warren, Brian E. Wright to follow suit next to them. Nicholas Vizzuti, Ricky Rosner back to 16th place. And then back to row number 9, Force Win, Brandon Gillis alongside. And then to complete your top 20, Anton J. Wright and Christopher Bishop alongside. Cody Ivey and Chuck Munier will be 21st and 22nd, with James Holzer returning back to action in 23rd. Tristan Bailey to 24th. That concludes your entire grid from the Michigan International Speedway. So everybody now lined up behind the iRacing official pace car, ready to go back green. We'll take a look at our current weather conditions before we kick things off at a track temperature of about 104 degrees. So it is very hot and slick here in Michigan. Track temperature, or at least the air temperature around the track, is 82 degrees with winds practically to the west at about 9 to 10 miles per hour. We're ready to get things started here for the Michigan International Speedway. Pace car will start to find its way left to the safety of pit road. Brandon Banks, the driver right alongside him, will lead him to the green flag. 2 Chevrolet Camaros, the 20 and the 33 lead us underway, and we are green flag racing from Michigan. Brandon T. Banks able to hold on and complete lap number 1, but already just as quickly as we've completed this lap, is just as quickly as the 41 of Justin Mons has peeked over to the inside, trying to take a look at your race lead. You see him all the way diving to the bottom in the yellow line, trying to make something work, but the run up top is just too strong. But the wrecking behind, though, handful of drivers involved. Ricky Rosner hard on the outside wall, and a caution brings us out for the first time here tonight. Roman Long involved in it. See the 78 of Jonathan Warren. His Ford Mustang also caught up in this event. The 73 might have picked up damage as well, with Dustin Webb in it. There's everybody also trying to get by as Rosner suffers significant damage to open this race. We'll take a look and see exactly where that began. It was about a couple of drivers piling in the first part of the back straightaway. You see it about here. You're looking at the 43. I believe it was up the road where it had started. It actually did start around where Warren was sitting in the 78 where he got involved. You'll see him around here in the midst of, I believe, 3 wide action. Got caught up by, it will look to be the 37 up ahead of the road. Actually, the 97 rather, in his Chevrolet Camaro. Kind of reminiscent of the JTG Daughtry cars. Gets into him as there were 3 wide. 25. And there's the 8 of Tyler Murray also collected as well. And then you see Rosner getting significant contact. I believe James Holzer also had a piece of this as well. You'll see it from about here. He's able to get through, but I believe he gets in it late. Actually, no, he just decides to exit the racetrack. He was one of those drivers to leave as Rosner suffers heavy front-end damage. And he'll take his faster pair down pit road. So to open this race, already had our first yellow, and already just as quickly as we get it, field behind the 20 of Brandon Banks will go down pit road. I think a quite possibly early strategy to get some tires and maybe some fuel to help along with the strategy calls maybe that we could see if we continue to get some sort of long green flag runs. Handful of drivers that we've seen in this race, or at least starting this race tonight, we haven't really seen all season. I think Brandon Banks is in that category. Haven't seen him much throughout this season in 2021, but good to see that he's joining here tonight, leading them from the pole. Now, may not lead this race off of pit road. Actually, Kyle Benson will get out first, so Benson with a quick run up and off the jacks. He will be the first one out of pit road, but you did see one other car to get by. That was the 77 of Forrest Wynn. His Ford Mustang, I believe, just getting fuel this time by. So we'll see exactly how things fare out for him at the moment. Everybody else going to also look to get out of pit road first. I believe Ricky Rosner, there's Roman Long also getting their fast spares. They got out of pit road just now. There's Banks leading the majority of the field off, along with the 33 of Tyler Warner. And sporting a brand new paint scheme tonight. Haven't seen him in these colors at all this season, but nonetheless, a gorgeous looking Mac Tonight throwback. One of the Bill Elliott throwbacks, and one that we've seen in real life NASCAR a couple years back when Jimmy McMurray decided to run it. It was the dark blue contrasted with the yellow, and one of the old McDonald's promotions of Mac Tonight and some of the late night meals they did offer. And a nice throwback here nonetheless at Michigan. First time we see him in these colors, so hopefully maybe they give him some extra luck here as well in the Irish Hills. And Tyler Warner, the driver who did win at Daytona, and just talked about him recently, considering that he's in the fight for the points lead along with Craig Lonsauger and Kyle Benson in the Ford machine, who's going to be leading us back to the green flag. So there could be some also tensions for points, especially when it comes in. Remember, 33 has a race win, but the 4 of Kyle Benson does not. And we're still looking for that 4, maybe potentially to get to victory lane at some point this season. He's racked up a lot of great finishes, top 3s, top 5s, you name it. He's been everywhere but victory lane in 2021. He's been looking for that illustrious checkered flag to send it all off and maybe even propel him further into success. And he will be the next one to lead us to the green flag. So not many options for tires, and probably not surprised considering you've only ran about 2 laps in this race. So even early on, not a lot of drivers looking to go down pit road and get some of that damage, or at least damage fixed if you're a driver involved in an incident, but you probably want to get fuel maybe to top off and at least stay on a decent strategy, get the extra way in, maybe go a little bit longer if you were to just stay out on the track. So I believe that was the constant decision for everybody, maybe to get some fresh rubber. You don't necessarily wear them out too much when you're running on a track like this in the first 2 laps of the event, where you're barely really able to get any sort of laps logged in. So Kyle Benson in the Ford Mustang will lead us off to the green flag on a restart on lap number 6 of 115. The 20 of Brandon Banks, who led us to the initial start of the green flag, he will be alongside of row number 1. Tyler Warner and the 41 of Justin Mons behind them to help. And up the gas we go, back up to the gears. Kyle Benson leads us back to green on lap 6. Sailing it back to turn 1 and 2 to the back straightaway. Got some help down low. That's the 12 of Jaden Gimbel aiming to assist the 33 of Tyler Warner to give him some sort of extra room. We saw it once with the 41 of Justin Mons prior, but he was not able to take away the lead just yet. Same case for that 33. A little bit of help through the draft. And Kyle Benson continues now. We'll lead this race at least another lap this time by one of the handful that he's already started to pick up after staying out, or at least going out first on pit road. You see him dive back to turn 1 and 2. A little bit of a higher line this time for mostly everybody else apart from Tyler Warner, who wants to pioneer that bottom so far. And he might be caught up 3 wide with Banks and Mons as they aim to get by. They'll get some of that draft. They will sail through, and now they will attempt to get to this race leader at this point as everybody continues to spread out. You're probably looking at Michigan, a very wide surface. You could already see it 3 wide. That's Cody Ivey down to the outside. It's a 1 of Ant J. Wright, who was all the way to the bottom. He did get past Brandon Gillis in a new paint scheme in his Toyota Camry. Also was able to slip by as well. And just the way that Michigan is shaped to be. Very wide racetrack, very large racetrack. See Gillis running the apron all the way down there. Not sure exactly why. Maybe letting some drivers by. But just like Auto Club, we've seen how wide this track can get, how much space you're really given here with these cars. And for the most of the field, it's been running the top for the most part. The opening laps of this race. However, maybe the middle could be of some support. The 20 of Brandon Banks, pole sitter, used it in 3 and 4. He may have the option to the inside, but he does have no help out there. So he'll have to suffer for now. Maybe lose some extra spots, maybe lose some extra ground as well. But unlike a lot of the super speedways, as you see the 41 looking to go 3 wide for the race lead. Here at this track, you really have to manage tire conservation while also trying to be as fast as you can. And now Justin Mons with a head out front, barely to turn 3, gonna sail it in the corner and make it work on the inside. So Justin Mons takes over the race lead for the first time tonight and able to perform a masterful move to the inside of the racetrack, go 3 wide forward and take this lead early to complete lap number 9 up to lap number 10. And just as I was mentioning about what Michigan is, especially with the sister track and the Auto Club Speedway, with all this space, so with the way this track is configured, you're using a lot of the throttle for the most part, but unlike a lot of the tracks like Daytona, Talladega, you're not practically wide open throughout. You do have to lay out the throttle a little bit, especially when the tires start to wear out. That's where you'll see a lot of the temps cool down. At least for the track will slow down and wear out significantly, and times will be determined by that. You see already as they've crossed the start-finish line, it's already about a second, or almost just about 2/10 of a fall off here. So it's already starting to take effect in the first 11 laps of this race. That's the way it goes here, Michigan, or an Auto Club as well, where you really want to take care of the car as it moves forward. But I don't think anyone up front is practically thinking about taking care of their race cars. Kyle Benson now under pressure from what was former race leader Justin Mons. Brandon Banks able to take it back on the high side with that power, able to maneuver the middle, maybe going to try and defend as they continue on. And you'll ride on board in just a moment there. There it is, the 4 of Kyle Benson. He currently works this racetrack. Take a listen to how things work in the draft. And you have that full-fledged view of the battle for the race lead as it continues to flare on. You see the 41 of Justin Mons able to get a run on the 20 of Brandon Banks. It might, for the moment, be able to take away the race lead. Up the banking they go. You see the 20 rocking the way high side. Look at the run off the corner and try to stay even with them. The Chevrolet Camaro versus the Ford Mustang up at the head of this field. Take notice of who's sitting in 4th, though. Some drivers who may want to look into this battle should it continue. The 75 of Nicholas Vizzuti. Remember the winner last week at the Martinsville Speedway. What was a chaotic race to the finish. A driver who's won at short tracks this season, but has not been able to capture a win anywhere else. And this could definitely be that moment. He's been strong on 1.5 miles, strong on some of the longer tracks. And here Michigan could possibly have that shot as well. You see him trying to dive to the inside of Kyle Benson. The battle for 3rd as it continues. They'll stay side by side. And as for the leader, it'll also maintain stagnant. Here's a look a little bit further back in this field. This is Brandon Gillis running around the 10th spot. This is the final spot into the top 10. And a couple drivers battling for position behind them. The 16 of Matt Roberts, the 97 of Ken MacArthur, and Jay Wright, Dustin Webb in this long line of machines. They're also in this battle as well. Things are those starting to tighten up here up at the top 6 or 7. As Banks now will return for the race seat. Justin Mons again looking for the bottom. He'll try it once more off turn 2, so they continue to trade places over and over again. You got to think at some point the tires will start to wear out even further, considering that they're racing each other this hard. For the moment, we may see everybody else behind. They're starting to accordion up. They may be able to take time in that position and be able to probably take those spots away, especially if we get summer long green flag runs. And I didn't talk about the unpredictability of this racetrack, just how tough it is to really master a place like this, because you're going so fast, you're probably thinking more about the draft, but you also have to worry about the tire conservation, worry about your throttle, and a lot of these races do end up on the strategy end, where you get long green flag runs, and you end up seeing just what the minds of these drivers and crew chiefs can do in terms of maneuvering their way on tire strategy or fuel strategy, maybe saving to the end, using distance as a parameter as well, and just aiming to do the best they can. We saw it last night in the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. They didn't go to Michigan, but they did go to the sister track at Auto Club, and it was a race full of strategy. Did not have one yellow flag whatsoever. Race stayed flag to flag from the beginning all the way to the very end, and it really did take strategy to end off on a high note for Bob Bryant. Took his first ever Coke Series victory at that track and in the series history, or for him at least in his career on the sim. So if that tells you anything, it certainly means that a track like Michigan can also fall in the same rain when it comes to a race like this, where you have about 115 laps. There's necessarily a long way to go. You kind of have to keep yourself tucked in. And if it stays green, you may have to look for a lot of the strategies. So finally, battle for the race seat has simmered down. 20 of Brandon Banks has taken it over from Justin Mons. Mons has not had a strike back, at least yet. They're rocking the turn 3, where at least some of the drivers beneath the top 8 or so, they're all mired back. There's Christopher Bishop. He's the last member in this large group. Cody Ivey then follows suit, but he's practically all by himself. And then, as aforementioned, Matt Roberts in the 16. He's tailing behind the 66, or the 86 rather, of Tristan Bailey, rocking an A-Shock car in his Chevrolet Camaro tonight. A lot of these drivers we haven't really seen this season making their first starts, and we've seen just about what first starts can do, especially with the winner at the Daytona Roval not too far ago, where we saw the rookie in the series take place his first race in 2021 and took away the checkered flag in dominating fashion. And the newer drivers here tonight, from about the first all the way to about 23rd, making their reins in, maybe trying to make some points, get a win, have some fun against some of the series veterans. Right on board with last week's race winner, Nicholas Vizzuti, as he heads to turn 3. See him now rocking behind Jaden Gimbel, just aiming to stay in this draft, keep himself maneuvered in here, as they're about to complete lap number 19 of 115 here at Michigan so far, where things have stayed green, things have stayed calm. Ultimately, ever since our first yellow, we have not seen any sort of close contact since. Right on board with Vizzuti, continues to ride within the 6th spot. He'll continue to maneuver through, as now race leaders have slightly pulled away from Kyle Benson. They're looking at about a couple tenths now, maybe almost about 2 tenths here between your race leader and the second place car, at about 6 tenths now between first and third. So they're starting to separate themselves merely now throughout this field. Did mention top 8 have practically separated themselves from everybody else. You see a little bit further back on the right in your screen, Bishop got a tag at the outside wall. He may lose some positions there, or possibly a lot of time at the end of the route as they headed out of turn 2 for the moment. But as we complete lap number 21, we continue to ride through. There's a couple drivers mired back in here, including Jaden Gimbel, who've had a shot at a couple wins this season and still looking for that first win in 2021. He's been close a handful of times, and he's been involved in some good amount of strategy here in this series. He's looking for another consistent run. Craig Lonsarter, the winner at Iowa on a short track, has also showed his prowess at a lot of the other short tracks this season, including Martinsville as well. He was close to that win also before getting taken out and practically beaten and battered around that racetrack. Luckily now doesn't have any damage on his Toyota Camry, and also sporting a different scheme this time around. Now rocking the Wisen colors once again, which he did run in Iowa. So maybe looking for some of that luck here to grab a victory, as he now rides in the 7th spot behind what will be looked at in Gimbel and Vizzuti just up the road, as Vizzuti is now preying on the 33. Tyler Warner looking for the 4th spot at this point. Not really much to talk about. Here is the 78 of Jonathan Warren, two of these drivers, and Tyler Murray as well. Both of them involved in the first incident, the first 2 laps of this race. They were able to get damage. I believe did not elect to take the fast repair, so they did stay with some of this damage and probably chose to stay some of the time on pit road. And so they're kind of mired back with some of that aerodynamic damage. And that's something that also comes through here at a place like Michigan, where the speeds are so high, you're really going faster throughout this track, mostly on the throttle. You need to depend on the aerodynamics in your race car. If you do grab some sort of damage, it definitely will affect how fast you go down the straightaways and even through the corners, considering how fast you're going. And last week at Martinsville, we threw it out the window because no matter what contact you had, even if your car looked like a modified, you could still run competitively with the field and still be able to take positions away, take the race lead away, do whatever you can, and still be relatively fast comparative to the rest of the field. Here in Michigan, though, it's a completely different story. If you do get some of that damage on your race car, you could be mired back further in traffic, as you'll lose a lot of the speed down the front straightaway and rear straightaway, and of course in the turn, since you're going so quick. That aerodynamic damage will give you some extra drag, slow you down as a result. That's exactly why you see a lot of these drivers not wanting to tag that outside wall. They think it's way too big of a risk to hit that outside wall, because if you do, you're going to get some of that damage. All of a sudden, you could lose a couple miles per hour down the straights. And definitely could really become detrimental to your race as a whole. Right now, Vizzuti tries to hold off Gimbal. Tried to make a move on Tyler Warner, was right to the back bumper, but ultimately did not make it stick, so he's fallen into the clutches of this Ford Mustang and continue to fight out the battle as we complete lap number 25. So there's Craig Lonsarger now joining this battle as Gimbal takes over the position. He'll be on his way maybe to catch Tyler Warner in this mix as well, as the 2 drivers up front, Banks and Mons, who have made their first starts tonight, they are now edging out and now about more than a second ahead of Kyle Benson, who currently rides in the 3rd spot. We have talked about Benson so many times this season being in contention for wins and still not able to really capture it, but top 3s, top 5s, taking that Ryan Newman route certainly does help give you all those points, and that's exactly why Kyle Benson is considered your points leader right now. All those points have been racked up from those good finishes, and we really have yet to see Benson take victory lane into his own hands, but still waiting for that moment, probably waiting for the playoffs to make it happen. I think that's probably where things will also get very hectic also in this run. If you're looking for the drivers currently running for Dash for Cash and the qualifier, then you should be looking at this battle for 4th, because Tyler Warner is in that conversation. He's one of those drivers looking for the Dash for Cash in order to qualify. The driver right behind him and the driver right behind him as well, they are all looking for that move. Pretty much everybody in this 4-car train right about here, starting with Warner, they are all in the Dash for Cash qualifier, and they are all right now qualified to run in Atlanta and run for the prize. So they are currently in the best spot they can be at this point, considering some of the other drivers. Actually, no, if you want to look for the top 4, you probably do have to look at the driver who's leading this race. Brandon Banks is currently one of the drivers edged in, so if you really want to take notice of what's going to happen here for the Dash for Cash qualifier, it'll stand as Brandon Banks currently sitting in 1st, then Kyle Benson, then Tyler Warner, Jen Gimbal, and Nicholas Vizzuti. But you are seeing now, pass for the race lead. Justin Mons goes to the inside, able to take the advantage off turn 2 and able to take the race lead once again, but it won't be without a fight back. Brandon Banks now looks back to the inside, looking for that race lead once more. He'll take it back. We'll see if the crossover is able to be completed here off turn 4. As Banks checks it up a little bit off the last corner. Here comes the 41 with a run at this point. Just aiming to get as much as he can. You see him now rocking the high side, maybe looking for that extra grip up top to make things work. Instead, he will try and arc it all the way down, make that crossover stick, switcheroo, and now he's back to the bottom side, but just a little bit wide off the corner, maybe trying to make things work. Not enough speed to carry. The 12 of Brandon Banks will look back to this lead. Boy, it has been amazing to see these two trade places over and over again. And considering they continue to pull away from everybody else behind, you got to think they, although they've been the most aggressive drivers, A, they've been the fastest, and B, they're also the better ones on tire conservation at the moment because nobody else has been able to catch up to this point. So we continue to run through lap 32 of 115, not at our halfway mark just yet. We're getting closer to it as we've now stepped into a long green flag run, and we could possibly also see drivers go down pit road, make some of that strategy stick, and maybe we will see some different cutaway strategies, maybe the overcut, undercut. We've seen it happen before. We're not going to go flag the flag here, considering we already did have our first yellow technically in the opening laps. But if we go long enough, we could definitely kind of get rid of that first caution and pretty much call the race mostly due to the strategy levels. And especially if you're thinking Kyle Benson, if you're guys like Lonsauger, guys like Warner, who are looking to gain a lot of points and positions over the competition in the point standings, definitely make that start here. Maybe anybody else looking for a win, as you see side by side between Lonsauger and Vizuzzi. Vizuzzi has had a wild ride in reverse gear, so at least seems as though the tire wear not necessarily working out for the driver of that Ford Mustang. He now is getting put under pressure by Lonsauger in the 13. Yet to make that pass complete, but they continue to remain side by side and could possibly lose a lot more ground to Christopher Bishop and Cody Ivey, who currently ride a little bit behind. You see Bailey and Roberts, talked about them, and Roberts, one of those drivers as well. I believe Bailey in that conversation as well for that Dash for Cash qualifier. So a lot of the drivers in this field are eligible for it, and they're still with clean race cars, nearly near the midfield, but still keeping that eye close on the top guys and still looking at this race in a bigger picture scale, knowing that it's only lap 34 and not lap 111. As now Bailey will look to the bottom. He'll try to take this position away. This is for the 9th spot. Bailey currently held that last spot in the top 10, and now Ivy will fall into place. Roberts will look to attack and also step into the top 10 and to follow. So your top two run pretty much nose to tail at this point. The 41 of Mons continues to hold reign of that 20, and you could see Kyle Benson probably catching up a little bit of lap traffic up ahead. You saw it just briefly there in the cameras. They're moving to turn 3. You can see just how close they are now, starting to approach lap traffic. But you may want to also take notice of just where we're going to be stepping into now. We're about 30, I'd say 31 laps now on a stint. Everybody within, practically everyone in the lead lap is mostly within 31 laps, unless you pitted a little bit earlier, but everybody practically did pit under that first yellow flag. So it's about 31 laps now. You might be looking to see what could happen on this pit strategy, maybe find out what you're going to do, because we've seen a lot of things taken by the leaders of the race when these situations arise. When people like Brandon Banks or anybody in the race lead, we've seen a lot of these events, whether it be Auto Club, whether we saw it at Chicagoland where it went flag to flag and pretty much nailed itself on strategy. You're going to be looking at either the leader maybe going to overcut, or they could be potentially the first driver to go down and start the cycle off. We've seen that before. We could definitely see it happen once more. There hasn't been anybody going down pit road, maybe now until Brian Wright in the 23. However, he is a lap down. He did get some damage, so he's going to end up on pit road. Ken MacArthur is also taking his service. We did see him in the midfield, though, so he possibly could be one of those drivers to kick off this strategy and make things work. About drivers near the rear of the field, Tyler Murray and Roman Long also elected to pit. They're near the rear of the field as well, and they are also one lap down. So this could be potential for another cut here that we could possibly see. And maybe they're looking to take things early, so once these guys go down pit road, they could be able to maximize distance, take over position, maybe gain some when and the drivers on the fresh tires move by. But that's a big risk that you take when you go in this pit strategy form, because if you look for that overcut strategy, you're looking to stay on the oldest tires the longest, and if people pit before you, they can easily use fresh tire power depending on the distance to get around you. And at tracks like Michigan, and we've seen it at the 1.5 milers, where fresh tires basically tower miles over anyone on the older sets. That's exactly how we've seen it. But now we look to see all of the top three go down pit road as Banks, Mons, and now Benson look to head down. All three of them together decide to make this call and pit at around the same time. I have a couple drivers that stay out. Jaden Gimbel and Lounsauger elect to go out at least one more time. Tyler Warner has also decided to pit along with Vizzuti, Matt Roberts, Tristan Bailey, who's already in his stall, Dustin Webb, Christopher Bishop, who's now exiting pit road, along with Cody Ivey. This could definitely shake things up now with Jaden Gimbel to the race lead. As you head down the racetrack, now going to be hard on the brakes and going to be edging to pit road. We'll see if Lounsauger joins him, and indeed he will. So top two leaders who have cycled out, they now head down at about lap 39 of 115. We were probably expecting to see this strategy early on. There are the former race leaders out of pit road. We'll see how they fare out compared, and I don't think it's a big distance here between these guys who pitted and some of the ones who just pitted right now. So we could see an equalization between them two once we step forward here. So they head out. There are the race leaders. They have cycled back. Seems as though Jaden Gimbel on a lengthier strategy is still falling positions, or he's spending a lot of time down pit road. This may not even be a good sight whatsoever, because Craig Lounsauger has stepped out of pit road. He is 8th, so I believe we might have had a speeding penalty for the 12 of Jaden Gimbel from the officials. And he is spending all that time down pit road, and that is not what you want to see. But you are going excess of 185 miles per hour and shortening it all the way down to the pit road speed limit. It was not enough for Jaden Gimbel, who slowed down just a little bit later, coming off of turn 4. And now he will have a mission of his own to try and get back into the competition. You're probably looking that he probably will aim for a yellow here to bunch the field up, get a lucky dog, be back in contention, and be running around here where he was. But that means the top two leaders will be able to cycle out back out front. So they were net P1, and now they are P1 and P2. Kyle Benson, who followed along suit, he is sitting in 3rd. Tyler Warner pitted with them in 4th. Vizzuti, Bailey, all of these guys who pitted. I think Bailey gained the most out of this one, along with Matt Roberts, because they're now sitting inside further to the top 10. Lounsauger, Bishop, and Cody Ivey did lose those positions further out. Now Ivey trying to make something work on the front. Make things stick to the 42. You see the exit of the corner. Continue to press by, and fresh tires not necessarily such a big advantage, but now there is the change once more for the race lead. Justin Mons back out front and able to take that place over the 20 of Brandon Banks. We'll try and see exactly how that happened. And that was in the middle of 3 and 4. Here it was. As they went into the corner, both of them heading in. Here's the 41 to the bottom side, diving it. And therefore makes it stick. So a textbook move by the 41 to edge back out front. A little bit high on the racetrack, but nonetheless able to make it stick. And now he currently rides as your race leader in our segment here from the Michigan International Speedway. Right now, under our first run of green flag pit stops has just completed it. We'll take a short break, but you won't miss a thing here on MaxSpeedTV, where you're watching the 10th race of the 4-Wide Racing Cup Series from the Michigan International Speedway.
I am here and now. where stories you pass down are born. I am where drivers become legends, and legends become the new kings. I'm where nothing's impossible. Even a champion rising again in Phoenix. I'm moving forward, and if you really try, you can catch me. I am NASCAR.
Coming up to the line, being chased, and it was Braden Johnson.
Unbelievable finish.
It was 1/1000th of a second between them.
Green flag in the air. We are racing in the 2020 24 Hours of Daytona.
They go door to door for the feature race lead here on the last lap of the race. Side by side for the race lead in the final corner at Homestead. Down the back straightaway, 3 wide again for the race lead. This is unbelievable stuff here tonight.
Loma is going to have to be very deep on the brakes, and he is very deep on the brakes. It's side by side through the corner. This is for the win.
It'll be side by side. Davies low, Ottinger high. To the very inside is Garrett low. 4 wide at the stripe. For Audie's win here on this outside line. Neck and neck. Who's going to back out? Does anyone back out? Verstappen starts to squeeze on the inside, and now he'll try and straight line it. Goes under the apron. Drag race to the line. It's so close to call.
"48 laps complete out of the 115 here for the 4-Wide Racing Cup Series from the Michigan International Speedway. You are currently looking at your current battle for the race lead, which have been trading places for a good chunk of this race. The 2 pioneers up front. That'll be the 41 of Justin Mons, who leads this race, and the 20 of Brandon Banks. They have continued to run away from third place, Kyle Benson, and under pitch strategy, they were able to nail it through. Mons was able to take over the race lead, but still pressure being mounted from behind in that Chevrolet Camaro right in there, that number 20, the orange and silver chrome machine. So it has been a rather green flag race for the most part. Did have our opening caution at about lap number 2 of this event, but quickly fired things back up in lap number 6, and we've been green ever since then. We did end up on our first wave of green flag pit stops on about lap number 30 to 35. It's exactly where we had our range. A lot of the drivers pitted from the rear, a lot of the drivers in the lead, and these two ended up in the front once again where they have cycled through. There's the distance between your top 2 and third place Kyle Benson, who rides there, but Tyler Warner, who's looking so far behind along with Nicholas Vizzuti, they have been eyeing in, trying to take advantage if there's a slip up ahead between that 4, maybe take some of the draft away. That's one of the keys to look at here. When you go to a place like Michigan, it's mostly about taking that draft away and being in the right place at the right time. If Tyler Warner is able to get some of that draft in, he could pull him into a slipstream, take away some of that air, give away some of the speed, and be able to catch up, take away that position. There's one driver all the way to the bottom, though. Could have had a moment. That was Ant J right in the one machine. He's able to gather it back up and merge to the track, hopefully safely. Nobody else really behind him. There are most of the leaders there. And the front 2 were able to run away, as now the 1, I believe, is slowing down to enter. Actually, no, he won't enter pit road. He'll stay out and let these 3 rather by, maybe 4. So if you're counting it at this point. But these 2 running for the race seed for practically this entire race, and they really haven't let go. We've also been talking about some of the drivers that have been on the edge and waiting for that Dash for Cash qualifier. Brandon Banks has been one of those entries, so he is currently sitting in a right spot to be the first one to qualify for the Dash for Cash when we head to Atlanta in a couple weeks and take away some of that prize money, be able to run for Kyle Benton, Tyler Warner, Nicholas Azuti, and Tristan Bailey, along some of the next drivers as well, to be in that conversation. They would join the top 4 as well to end up in this fight as they continue to run and ramage for position. If you want to see everybody a little bit further back in the field, here's the edge of the top 10. This is where the 42 of Bishop and the 81 of Cody Ivy have been running around this time, along with the 73 of Dustin Webb. All three of them have been within position of each other. They've been riding well around this spot, and they've been trying to trade places within each other, maybe use some of that draft, help them out in this later run, but they haven't really been able to catch up position. A lot of the green flag strategy has stretched the field out for the most part, as you see that pressure there from the 75 Azuti looking to the outside for position number 4, trying to take it away clearly there on the top group of the racetrack. What I did notice, though, throughout this entire run and throughout the first laps of this race, you saw a lot of drivers hanging up top. They wanted to find that grip up there at the banking, and they had the runs well for them, so they were able to make it work. As you see, just an example of it, 75 Azuti able to clear the 33 via that high line. However, now, for the most part, I think everybody's looking for the middle of the racetrack. You see these two running higher in 3 and 4, but seem to run a little bit lower in 1 and 2, and that comes to the dynamics of this racetrack and the characteristics of it, and that also plays to what we saw at Auto Club not too far ago, where you want to be a little bit tighter down the racetrack, get a better arc off the corner to the inside in 1 and 2, especially since things straighten out. You get that wall, and the wall really comes up quick, especially with the speed that you're going to, so you really don't want to tag that outside wall because you don't want to get any of that aerodynamics, and you don't want to slow your car down. But in 3 and 4, you have that wider exit, considering this is a tri-oval configuration and it's not necessarily just another straightaway, so you do have a wider exit. You're able to slide the car a little bit up more, but even then on the tires, it probably won't be the best situation to make up for yourself on your race car. There's Jaden Gimbel. We saw him running for a P5 spot, also one of the drivers in the Dash for Cash qualifier, eligible for it, but he has gone about a lap down at this point, and right now he is currently running within, right now actually dead last right now, 23rd 1 lap down. He needs some positions to gain on the other drivers who are a lap down up until the 77 of Forrest Wynn. Hopefully he's able to cycle back up ahead. However, Jaden Gimbel was running in the top 5 and then got a speeding penalty down pit road in that green flag cycle, so it has not been well for Gimbel, just trying to dig himself out of the hole that was placed here for him in this race, and a good enough amount of time to get through it, hopefully be able to head back to the lead lap, or maybe if we have a yellow, could be in position for a lucky dog. But right now we are sitting at about a halfway mark of this race, so we'll take a look at our race summary and how things have gone so far. 59 laps to go here from Michigan. It's been green ever since our opening yellow, so maybe looking for another set of pit stops to come rather soon. We had that first yellow, as I mentioned, for about 3 laps in the caution laps. We've had 9 lead changes, a lot of them taking place under pit strategy. However, a good amount of them, about half of them, have also taken place on track, mostly between these two. Have been a good portion of a lot of these lead changes so far here in Michigan. So going from, I think that the difference from Martinsville last week, where we had a caution practically almost every lap, we had 31 yellows over the course of 285 laps at the half mile of mayhem, and then now going from that and going from 31 yellows to the current 1 that we have sitting, and barely even a short yellow, as a matter of fact, to open this race. It was on lap 2, and then quickly though on lap number 6, able to gather things up, head back green flag racing, and that's where we stood. Everybody else has been clean. Everybody else has been mostly separated apart from that short restart, but ever since things strung out, and now we're looking at what we're seeing right now, just mostly a race dependent on strategy. I did mention before that at Auto Club last night in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, we did see Kligerman Sport, the drivers of Bob Bryan and Isaac Gann, the 77 and the 44, able to maximize his strategy to the end by pitting at about the lap 53 mark, at about halfway through that race, making the one-stop strategy work and saving with enough distance and able to hold on for the race lead. And then Bob Bryan, of course, able to take away the win. Isaac Gann able to steal away third. Derek Justice was in the middle of that in second. All of them are practically on the same strategy around the same portion. And that's where things really come into consideration here in Michigan, because we probably could see that happen. We haven't seen anything change. I don't think anyone's made any crazy moves just yet. Nobody's elected to stay out long enough. I think at Chicagoland, that's where we saw it, where the leader would stay out for a long while, or maybe somebody else who would trade places after the leader pitted would stay out for about maybe 5 to 10 laps and then finally edge down pit road. But most of the strategies we've seen here in Michigan, most of them have involved just staying out, but maybe staying out for at least 1 or 2 laps and then going down pit road just right after the leader do, which doesn't bring a lot of distance, and then obviously does cycle back. We saw the driver who currently sits in 7th, Craig Lounsauger, and Jaden Gimble be a part of that strategy. The point is, it only worked for Lounsauger for then stay in the top 10 and did not work for Gimble with that aforementioned pit road speeding penalty. So we could potentially see a larger split coming to the rest of this race, and especially if we do have another yellow flag, that could definitely split things up and make things more interesting on that front and potentially change the entire profile of this race. And prior to tonight, we did look at our point standings, and we'll at least take a look at it once more as where everybody else currently sits on this grid in the points after our first 10 races. You see where Kyle Benson was, a 12-point buffer between him and Tyler Warner, which you are currently looking at the screen right now just after we get over this points graphic. Craig Lounsauger just 13 points behind the lead, so he is right there toe-to-toe with Tyler Warner, but they are practically separated on the racetrack for the first handful of positions, so you may want to look at an extension if things end up the way they are, with Warner currently sitting 5th, Craig Lounsauger currently sitting in the 7th spot. Not too far away, but still points nonetheless. Even if it's 1 or 2 points, it definitely does mean a lot in the larger spectrum. And when we get to the playoffs, we could potentially see a lot more throughout. And speaking of the playoffs, we do have a long way to go until we get there, but there is still a lot of great racing you can find here on MaxSpeedTV for this 4-Wide Racing Cup Series. Next week on April 7th, we head to the Tricky Triangle, the Pocono Raceway, to go things on the Cup cars, and we'll be heading there at about 9-10 p.m. Eastern. Going to be about a shorter race at about 70 laps, considering how long that track is in comparative to the others. And then we go to a short track once more, the Monster Mile at Dover, where we head to Las Vegas, to Charlotte Roval, at our second road course race of the season, Atlanta, Bristol, Phoenix, and then the Daytona Oval, where we started the season to end the regular season in the 18th race, and then of course the playoffs do start. And you got to think that's where guys like Tyler Warner, guys like Kyle Benson, they're already looking forward to it. Some of them already with wins to help their case and give themselves a good buffer, and you see it there when we looked at the points graphic not too long ago. There's mostly a 93-point spread between first and pretty much almost the rear of the top 10. There's a lot of drivers that are separated by a lot of points, and I don't think you can really gain it unless they continue to miss races or something dramatic happens where they're not really able to advance and gain some of those points that they really have bad races from then out. I think they're looking forward to the playoffs, where we'll have Richmond, Indianapolis, Kansas, Kentucky, and then we end the season at the home of NASCAR, the Charlotte Oval. That's where things really get started, and that's really where you want to look at it. It's where things could potentially get worse and make things even tighter between our playoff competitors and make things in it. We did have an announcement by the league owner here that talked about the eligibility in the playoffs and the way things were going to work on that front, exactly how things were going to happen, how the drivers were able to manage themselves, what they were going to be able to do, and exactly what might happen from then on out, especially with the way things have gone. As now here comes second place Brandon Banks to pit road, but funny enough, your leader does not go along with him. So the 41 of Justin Mons will stay out, Kyle Benson will stay out, Vizzuti and practically everybody else will stay out, but Brandon Banks here on at about 27 lap old tires, looking for an undercut strategy here. Gonna look to pit first out of everybody and kick off this strategy. I don't think if we were expecting anybody, it was going to be this driver. Matt Roberts is also out of pit road. He also kicked it off as well. Chuck Munier, who's now heading off pit road. Roman Long also there as well. They're going to be probably to some assistance here for Brandon Banks. You see him now heading off pit road and going to be mired back in the 12th spot. And this is going to be very interesting. And now here comes the leaders, apart from Justin Mons, Kyle Benson, Vizzuti, Tyler Warner, all of these drivers now going down pit road. And this is going to be their time to get service. So a lot of them did pit around the lap 30 to 34 mark. And now we're seeing a big shift. A lot of them going earlier this time on lap 67. There you see Lonsarger overshooting the pit box just a little bit. Cooked on the brakes. You saw Warner also doing the same. They might lose a heap of time here, and Justin Mons has been the only driver to stay out. Now he'll stop on the brakes. He'll be looking to head pit road this time by. There he goes down. He'll go to the slow pit speed limit, and he will be all by himself here at this point. And you know, we talked about the strategy at Talladega earlier this season. I think at Daytona you also could bring up that point where you don't really want to get out of pit road by yourself. You probably want to be there with at least one or two other people because you have the draft. You'll be able to be a little bit quicker comparative to everybody else, and it'll be a lot easier to handle yourself with more people and be around a good amount of the company as opposed to pretty much being all by yourself where you can be mired back in traffic, mired back in, or practically all by yourself with a lot of distance between yourself and the guy up front, and it won't be as helpful, it won't be as nice to have and no assistance and do everything by yourself. But here at Michigan, I mean, things change. You do have the draft, but since you're not wide open throughout, draft isn't everything at this venue. There you see Brandon Banks getting around what was your current race leader, and now the only drivers who have stayed out include Dustin Webb, Cody Ivey, Christopher Bishop, Brandon Gillis, CJ Munier. That is about it, up to about the 5th spot where Brandon Banks has caught up there on this early strategy. So now we're probably going to look and see where everybody else indeed goes down pit road and how Dustin Webb will maneuver this. Will he try to use that distance to his advantage? It's only about 19 seconds, so it could get very close, especially with the new tires here for Webb when he gets it. Remember, you got to really think about what the relatives are here at a track like Michigan. And now here comes the 73. Actually, no, he won't end up going down pit road. It almost looked like he was going to stop on the brakes, head out, and Ivy and Bishop also follow suit. Brandon Gillis is a little bit further back, so still on the eye to see whether he will step down to pit road. And for now, the answer will be no. He'll stick to the bottom side and be there for now. Brandon Banks has now stepped into the top 5, and the fresh tire is already working the benefit for him, but Justin Mons is actually not too far away. So this could get very close as we control now the end, or coming to the final 40 laps of this race. Webb will stay out a little bit longer. Now we'll look closer down to the bottom. He'll stick forward. It seems as though every time we look at him down, it may look like he's going down pit road, but he indeed doesn't. He stays all the way to the apron, makes things stick, and takes the shortest way around the racetrack. Maybe that's what he's looking for right now, but the gap continues to close in. So there has to be a moment of you're thinking about 13 and maybe 12, 13 second pit stops if you're getting fast enough. And if that doesn't really work out for you, then it may come very detrimental to your end and you'll lose a lot of positions, may not be there to the race lead. Maybe the fresh tires can help with some of that distance, but with the way things have strung out tonight, it may not be as easy comparative to pack was all scrunched up together. You see no dab of the brakes for the 73. He is all clear and toasty. And right now, take a moment to listen exactly how Webb is going around this 2-mile bend. And now down the gears he goes. Webb gonna slowly crawl to pit road. He'll be the first one there, as everybody else, I believe Cody Ivey, everybody else who had gone down, now they're out of pit road. They came in earlier from your race leader, so things might change dramatically. But here comes Brandon Banks, the next driver on the lot. He is net P1, and he will be P1 this time by. He'll get around Dustin Webb this time, as Webb is stuck down pit road for the moment with the jacks up on the race car. Now about to send it off. Actually, no, the jacks will go up now on the race car, so he just gotten into pit road before things have gone in. And so at this point, Banks continues to lead, but Justin Mons has not been too far behind. And then if you look at the drivers for third on back, you'll see a big switch up. Vizzuti in the 75 got around Kyle Benson. Tristan Bailey is now getting around Tyler Warner for position number 5. They're still at a dead heat battle to the front straightaway. They're really trying to make things work now under these tires. But what will really be a big concern here, I think we've seen it already a handful of times this season, is whether we're going to see another situation, since we're about 40 laps out from the end of this race, whether we will end up having another situation where you have to pit with about 15 to go, pit about 20 to go, or pit very close to the end of the entire race, and how things will pinch from there. Because if you're looking at a strategy that Brandon Banks is looking at, I think that's maybe what he is looking for, and guys like Dustin Webb have chosen the complete opposite route. For Banks right now, he was the earliest one to pit at about lap 26 to 27 on his stint. I think the strategy may be go for a 3-stopper here. Pit near close to the end of this race, but be good on this segment. Cycle around back to the race seat, control it there, and then be able to really hold on to the end of this race and not have to deal with a lot of that pressure to Mons. That's, of course, if we stay green. However, could be the strategy for him, because everybody's looking at about 30 to 35 laps on a stint before going down pit road. And if you're looking about 30 to 35 laps from now, you're looking at about lap 105 to lap 110, which is arguably very close to the end of this race. And especially a lot of drivers do not want to cut it as close. They don't want to get too close to the end of the event, or else they fear they're going to lose a lot of the track position, or things will get even more chaotic. Driver cut out, save everybody, and be there to the end. But should everything fall to plan, Brandon Banks could be in a nice position here with this strategy call to pit a little bit earlier, and then in turn going to pit earlier than everybody else, and then could use that distance to his advantage in the final laps of the event when he cycles through, because there will be enough laps for him to do so. And especially with the amount that he gained and the amount that he practically did not lose that last time by on this cycle, he could definitely have a good part in his hands for this to continue to stay in his favor. So it's about 2.2 seconds between himself and the driver of the 41, and Justin Mons. There's a look for third. Vizzuti holding off Kyle Benson for the time being. Look at this, 3 wide behind these drivers. That was the 25, the 43 of Ricky Rosner. And it was the 9 of Brandon Gillis, who was a little bit slower to the bottom. They almost went 3 wide to split each other. Bailey not able to get the spot over Tyler Warner. Matt Roberts has been peeking in on these two, however, a little bit further back. And things have now stretched into a calm motion here in Michigan, where Brandon Banks continues to stretch out his lead. So Banks continues to ride through. It's now almost 3 seconds, and we could potentially see guys like Vizzuti or Benson start to crawl in on the second place car. You can see as you're riding on board with the 75 that little black speck, that car up ahead exiting turn 4 right now, that is your second place car, and the car all the way up ahead who's just crossing the start finish line, that is Brandon Banks. So it is fairly getting close. Maybe some help with the 44 of Chuck Munier, and maybe a little bit more up ahead with another lap car there. I believe that is Roman Long, the 14, is a little bit further back. Could also provide some assistance and some draft to the driver of the 75. Maybe make things work further on here throughout. Dustin Webb, we saw him pit a little bit later. Didn't lose too much, and he's currently sitting just in the latter half of the top 10. Currently sitting 9th all by himself. He is 31 seconds behind the race leader and about 16 seconds from the guy up ahead in position, and Craig Launsager in the 13. So a lot of these drivers aiming for top 10 right now, not necessarily losing too much down the order. How about Tyler Murray in the 8 machine? Started all the way back or started actually in 9th, lost all the positions on an early wreck, and has now picked his way through to the top 10. I believe he did use that fast repair, used some of the damage repair now. And at this point, with the cycle through, Murray has been able to make things stick. So a phenomenal run for the driver of the 8 machine already in this point. A couple of drivers who also did work up through the spark. Ken MacArthur in the 97, he's also picked up from where he used to be in the midfield. Now he's currently sitting in 13th. Some of the other drivers, including Tristan Bailey, as he's in a dead heat now with a lap car. That is Jonathan Warren there in the 78 machine, just not too far behind as he continues to creep up on Tyler Warner there for position. They continue to ride through at this point. So there have been a lot of pickups here in the final segments of this race. Now under, or getting close to about 30 laps to go here from Michigan. Now we are once again looking at a pitch strategy call as the sun starts to set over the Irish Hills and things start to get a little bit darker. You see the sun setting, making things a little bit different here compared to the cloudy conditions we had to start this event. It's starting to clear up. The sun is starting to peek through the clouds, and we are maybe getting to a sunset photo finish here at Michigan International Speedway, where Banks continues to lead this event. Looking forward to our second run of green flag pit stop, so you won't miss a thing here on MaxSpeedTV. We'll take a short break, and we'll be right back where you're watching the 11th race, the 2021 Four Wide Racing Cup Series, as Brandon Banks continues to lead the Michigan International Speedway.
iRacing is a sim racing game that combines a true-to-life racing experience with an online community of virtual racers from all around the globe. iRacing offers a multitude of officially licensed cars and tracks, laser scanned with millimeter accuracy. Their car models and mechanical systems are based on real-world physics, engineered in cooperation with manufacturers and race teams. Their skill license system ranges from rookie to pro, ensuring members are always pitted against those with similar skill sets. Members are able to sign up for a weekly race series, compete in time trials, host a private race with friends, and participate in racing leagues created and run by the community. With over 170,000 members, iRacing works in partnership with renowned motorsports organizations like NASCAR to deliver virtual races based on the real-life NASCAR Cup Series, as well as many other series on the NASCAR ladder. iRacing also features team racing, providing a variety of options for members to create and manage their own teams. Race with friends or real-world teammates in full-length endurance events like the 24 Hours of Daytona, Spa 24, or the Bathurst 12 Hour. Additional partners include IMSA, World of Outlaws, Supercars, and IndyCar, allowing members to race in their very own Indianapolis 500, Bathurst 1000, Chili Bowl, and many more iconic events. This is iRacing, delivering the most authentic racing experience short of getting into a real race car. Sign up today at iRacing.com.
And back live from the virtual Michigan International Speedway, where Brandon Banks continues to lead. However, the gap between him and second place Justin Mons is starting to creep down. It was once at a high of about 3 seconds flat. It is now crept to 1.7 and now 1.8 seconds that last time by. Remember, we're still now edging closer to our potential second round a green flag pit stop, so we could potentially see just a little bit more of what these guys can do in terms of the mind games and be able to make it to the end of this race. They pitted a little bit earlier, about the lap 39 to 40 mark, and now they are closing in on yet again another round. Actually pitted around the lap 50 to 60 mark. Now they're heading to another round of green flag pit stops with Brandon Banks in control. And we did talk about earlier how Brandon Banks could be on a different strategy to pit near the end of this race. Have been a couple drivers to run forward, as you see a big battle here between some lap cars and some lead lap cars. Bailey able to get around Warner for the 4th spot, and Bailey on a nice comeback on this race so far. So we could potentially see now that we're about 21 to 23 laps on this stint, whether guys like Brandon Banks will elect to pit a little bit later now, or maybe go to pit early out of everyone else in order to stay on that strategy. There's Jaden Gimbel in the 12, who's currently mired 2 laps down. You see him slowing down at pit road. He has no effect, though, on this strategy, though. So he is one of the drivers not yet to pit. But one of the drivers who is calling it early, the 75 of Nicholas Vizuzzi, was up in the top 5 and has now been put to 12th. 1 lap down. They're looking for an early strategy out of them all. So instead of Brandon Banks kicking things off, it'll be Vizuzzi this time with now just about 25 laps to go. We are closing in on the end of this race. It's been green ever since the drop of the green flag on lap number 6. And now here comes, hard on the brakes he goes, Brandon Banks to pit road, this time by. And Justin Mons going to follow him in the 41. And Benson also going to head down as well, with Bailey, Warner, Matt Roberts going to head down pit road also on the brakes. A lot of them trying to lock up. Maybe thinks trying to get to pit road speed in time. But interesting enough, top 2 leaders will head down. And now it'll be all about what the 75 can do under this pressure. If he's able to gain everything back, he's back to 11th. We're looking for where the distance might be, if it is too large at this point, or whether he can be able to gain more positions here on throughout. So as he's heading now out of turn 4, getting closer to this segment, there have been a couple drivers who did not pit, including the 42 of Bishop and Cody Ivey, who are around 19 laps on their stint. There's Brandon Banks, and now out of pit road, sitting in 3rd. He could be the next driver to cycle back to the race. He did gain a lot of time on the 41 of Justin Mons, so a good amount of time between them two as they will equalize out. And Vizuzzi will now be on her surge to go by. Maybe not enough to get around Brandon Banks, considering the fresh firepower that Banks may have here at this point. As he close off what will probably be our final stretch of green flag pit stops. Remember, yellow could come out to set everything under a wild card, eventually make other people pit now, maybe make people pit a little bit later, and force drivers to make that decision, make a split, potentially go for 2 tires and go for anything else at this point. And that could possibly shake things up dramatically in this game, make things a lot harder for a lot of other people, and especially for those drivers, make it a lot tougher for the leaders to hold on to position. Now the big question is what these guys up ahead are going to do. Cody Ivey and Christopher Bishop pitted around now 20 laps to go, or 20 laps ago they pitted. So it's been about 20 laps on their stint. They've probably been earlier than most other drivers. I think they pitted later on that last segment of green flag pit stops, so they have this advantage now, and they're really able to use it to their advantage. The big question will be if they're able to hold on from here on out, especially now the gap is sitting at about 6.7 seconds. Whether Banks can catch him in time, or whether these guys were able to hold on, because Banks does have fresh tire power for now. However, it could easily equalize out. You're talking about a track like Michigan where it does eat up the tires significantly, and if you're on this longer run, even if you have fresh tires for about 1 to 5 laps, it can easily stretch back out, and especially right now in a situation battling with a lap car, and Jaden Gimbel could stretch the tires out and wear them even more and equalize themselves out, and Banks could be in a tough spot because he won't have as much speed. He can easily find himself right at the same amount of tire wear as the guys who have run 20 laps on their shoes. So this could potentially be interesting once we head forward. And now that we're approaching the final 15 laps of this race, how things will continue to shake out, and even more so how guys like Bishop could potentially head over to the 81 and Cody Ivey, give him a shot, give him a pass for the lead, and potentially get over that win, become his first win of the season. Nobody in the top 4 has pitted, or not has pitted, has won a race this season. The only driver who's won this race this season in the top 5 is the 75 Azudi, who won last week at Martinsville and also picked up the checkered flag at New Hampshire a little bit earlier this season. But everybody else, Ivy, Bishop, Banks, Mons, they have not been in victory lane in 2021, with Mons and Banks being joining this race. I believe the first time they've joined a race this season. And Ivy and Bishop being here for a while in 2021 in this season in the Cup Series. And Ivy with a potential shot at a race win if he's able to get there. Here's a little bit of battle. Kyle Benson, Tyler Warner, Tristan Bailey in a little bit of a 3-car train as they're getting around forced win in the 77. That's him as he's a lap car trying to get by. You see Bailey trying to use a side draft to his advantage. Maybe use the draft to Kyle Benson. Some of that clean air on down the bottom to make things work. You see him send it now all the way to the yellow line. Gonna maybe slide up the track, and it won't be enough. Maybe making things work right now for the driver of that 86 to ride on board with him. Has been running well in the top 5, top 10 throughout this entire race, and use that strategy to his advantage to be here at this point and be here in the top 5 with a potential chance to win if things get bunched up once more. See him still in a dead heat with Kyle Benson, your current points leader, as they get around forced win. Tyler Werner kind of on the third party here, watching to see if these two get into a tango and be able to be a part of this battle once again as they almost make contact to turn 1. They'll stay clear though as they try to maneuver on the 77 still, and this could be the clear for that pass. So there finally goes the 86 of Bailey by, and Benson will have to wait another time to set up a pass for the time being. There's Christopher Bishop, got passed on the racetrack and is now slowing down as him and Cody Ivy now go down pit road. Brandon Banks cycles back to your race lead with 18 to go. So how will things end up? We saw at Auto Club, strategy played a big role in that race and gave James Holzer to win at the end of it all. Was able to clear everybody else for the race lead, maneuver the strategy the best way possible, and from then on held on to the race lead, stuck there, and won the race. That was the second win of the season. Gap between himself and Justin Mons lays at 3.8 seconds, almost about 4 seconds here between the two, and even closer between the 41 and the 75. About less than a second between them two as well. He continues to try and ride through, sticking behind Jaden Gibble. You're right on board as they head to turn 1. Still modulating the throttle as he lays behind Jaden Gimble. 15 to go. Things could get ultimated tight. You see everybody within the top 10 or the top 9 are under the lead lap. Ken MacArthur in the 97 currently rides 10th. You see him he's fighting right now with second place Justin Mons, but he was already a lap down. He's the first car on 1 lap down. Ivy and Bishop also did go a lap down, so their lengthy strategy ultimately did not fare well for either of them. And they could have potentially end this race under the lead lap, mired back, and instead of where they were prior in the midst of the top 10. You see the battle here, Warner and Benson, two drivers fighting for a championship glory. Drivers fighting for the current points lead. With some points could potentially slim things down, as Lonsarger, who's the only other contender in this mix, is behind them in 7th. With a large gap too. I'm not sure if he will be able to make it stick. And continue to ride on through. Remember, guys like Benson, remember, talked about all these finishes and currently sitting in the top 5. Has the potential to end here as well. Get another top 5 this season, be able to hold some great points and still hold the points lead. It'll be a slimmer margin considering that Tyler Warner's just right behind him. Will get just one less point than the 4 machine. It'll still be a good headway for the 4 of Kyle Benson to hold on to the race lead as he progresses over everybody else. And considering everybody else in the top 5 aren't necessarily running for top 10 in points, apart from, I'd say, Vizzuti or Tristan Bailey, Benson could be in a good spot here, and possibly with another chance to pass Tristan Bailey for 4th. Is still within his crosshairs, still able to make things stick for now. As see, the sun that was peeking through the clouds just not too long ago has been covered once again. The clouds are making their way by as the afternoon simmers through, and we are edging to our final 10 laps of this race and getting closer to a checkered flag after what a dramatic makeover of what happened last week. We had 31 cautions at Martinsville, and it seemed as though we couldn't get away from the yellow flag. The flag man having to work overtime, getting paid a little bit extra that week. And the pace car also getting paid overtime as well. And not having to do as much work here tonight. With one yellow flag to open this race. The racing being clean throughout. As Brandon Banks, who had been trading positions with Justin Mons over the course of this race, a good and remarkable amount of lead changes between those two and putting on a show up front in the pack. And having the 2 most dominant cars all night. And Justin Mons is slowly trying to carve into that lead. He did a little bit last time by. And the last time at the line, we'll see how the lap times fare. Brandon Banks with a 39.885 and a little bit faster for Justin Mons, 39.784. That's some of the 2 fastest cars on the racetrack right now. Now, one car, I believe, all the way back behind. I believe that was the 97 Kevin MacArthur. He smacked the wall, but able to hold on to it. Some damage to his Chevrolet Camaro. The driver was sitting 11th. Not on the lucky dog spot. Cody Ivey continues to hold it. Well, that could have been very close there. Could have been one to bring us under yellow and change the entire complexity of this race. But for now, it remains still. Mons slower that time by. His Banks at about 94 tenths. Or 94 hundredths of a second. And things seem to be fairly equal between these two. The 20 of Banks seems to be faster in some parts of the track, while Mons sometimes, at least in some portions, is able to gap in, close the gap, be a little bit faster than the driver of the 20. But as they continue to train hands, it equalizes out in the longer run, because at one lap where Mons is a little bit faster, Banks is a little bit slower, but then next time Banks will be faster and Mons will be slower. That time it was a lot closer. 40 flat, 40.032 for Banks, 40.084 for Mons. But the time is starting to run out for the driver of that 41. You see him up ahead, trying to look up to the horizon and see Banks in his vision. But not just yet. Not able to do it. And still not there. If you're looking for the battle for 5th, it is also calmed down as Bailey and Benson hold on. Tyler Warner just a little bit behind this lap car. Lonsarger also falling through. He's out of turn 4 right now, trying to get around lap traffic. As Vizzuti cycled back on that early strategy, he'll cycle back to 3rd, so this could potentially be just a win. Another 3rd place finish, unless the drivers behind are able to catch up in time in the final 7 laps of this race. Gap has opened up just a little bit more. And this time by, coming to 6 laps to go for Brandon Banks in the 20, to try and capture his first win in the 4Y Racing Cup Series. Just only 5 left from Michigan. Mons not in it, but Banks in the middle of heavy lap traffic. You see up the road as you're riding in the cockpit with him. There's Cody Ivey, Jaden Gimbel, and a handful of others that have also been 1 lap down. They are caught up in the midst as well. And could be in the way for Banks to maybe slow things down, but the gap opens up once more. You could possibly be looking closer to the checkered flag, as Banks is now, his only mission is to hit his marks, keep it calm, and pray that a yellow flag does not come out. It's only hopes for the 20 there. He gets around Cody Ivey, puts him a lap down. Cody Ivey passed by on the lead lap, that older set. But it will be 3 to go from Michigan. Where Banks has been dominant all night long. Has led 64 laps and counting in this race. Started on the pole. Lost the lead a couple of times to open the race with Justin Mons. Traded that place a handful of times. But he has never been as low as second in tonight's race. To show you the absolute sheer dominance that the 20 has put on tonight here for Michigan. Coming to 2 laps to go from Michigan. 2 more miles from the Irish Hills for Brandon Banks. Gap is at 3.6 seconds. Mons now just crossing the start-finish line, as things have separated merely and laying down on the case of strategy. But it has been strategy and speed for the driver of the 20 tonight. As he continues to roll through. There's Jaden Gimbel in the 1. Avant J. Wright fighting for lap positions. They continue to also make their way in 3 and 4. Brandon Banks will come off the final corner and take the white flag. One more time for Michigan in the 4 Wide Racing Cup Series for race number 11. Speaking of Bob Bryant's win last night in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series at this place, his sister track laid itself on strategy, but Bob Bryant did not have the raw speed through most of the race and was there at the end. But it has been the opposite for Brandon Banks, able to nail the strategy down, and with the sheer performance of landing it on pole and leading most of this race, Brandon Banks will step off of the final corner. Brandon Banks, for the first time in his 4 Wide Racing career, will win from the Irish Hills here in Michigan. Brandon Banks does it. And as they're coming to the line, what has happened? So the 41 of Mons, he ends up 7th as he has run out of fuel. At the end, Nicholas Vizzuti will take to 2nd. Kyle Benson will surge to the 3rd spot. And what has happened here? Well, we have to take a look at this. Mons was running 2nd at the end and is now just limping to the finish line. You'll see what happened here. There's Mons. And you see his car just trying to shake it, get it to add some more fuel. And that is so tough for the 2nd most dominant driver tonight. But for the driver who wins, it's the 20 of Brandon T. Banks, able to qualify for the Dash for Cash at Atlanta in a couple weeks' time. Vizzuti, Benson, Bailey also end up in. As the 20 burns it down from Michigan. What a wild strategy night. One that lasted for mostly under green flag conditions. As we'll take a look at your full field results, see exactly where every single driver finished at the end of 115 laps from the Irish Hills. Brandon T. Banks' first career Ford Ride Racing Cup Series win comes here at the Michigan International Speedway. Nicholas Vizzuti surging on from the 41 of Mons, who loses fuel. He ends up second after his win last week at the Martinsville Speedway. Kyle Benson, another solid finish to third. Tristan Bailey to fourth, with Tyler Warner trying to capture the points lead. Will lose a little bit more in the fifth spot. Craig Lonsauger just behind him, 6 seconds behind in the sixth spot. Dustin Webb in seventh. Tyler Murray will round out in eighth. Justin Mons lost fuel at the end of it all, will finish ninth, 1 lap down after a dominant race by him as well. And Cody Ivey, 1 lap down, took that later strategy, ends up at the tail end of the top 10. Forced win, and everybody else behind in the top 20 was at least 1 lap down or more. Forced win, Jonathan Warren, Ken MacArthur to 13th, Christopher Bishop 14th, Brandon Gillis rounding out your top 15. And some notable drivers here: Roman Long, Chuck Munier, CJ Munier, Jaden Gimbel, who we saw up at front in a good portion of this race. Pit road speeding penalty lands him 20th at the end of it all. Then the final 4 drivers in 24th, Brian E. Wright, Ant J. Wright, Ricky Rosner, and James Holzer rounding out your entire field, your full field rundown from the Michigan International Speedway. But now it'll be our time to take a moment to talk with your race winner, the 20 of Brandon T. Banks, and we'll see if we can get him in to the booth here and be able to get a moment with him to talk with your current race winner here from Michigan. Now bringing in the 88 of Brandon Banks, or the 20 rather, of Brandon Banks here on the racetrack to victory lane here at Michigan. This was a race that you practically dominated, along with the 41 of Mons, trading places, then it all nailed down a pitch strategy. Walk us through your call here at the end to ensure your race win here tonight.
Yeah, Justin there, he had a real good car. Like I said, we were just sitting there in the middle of the race, just riding, just biding our time, just figuring out how we wanted to pit there. And I felt like short pitting him a little bit there, I could get out in front of him. I felt like I could get in front of him. I think we could pull away from him, and it just all kind of worked out.
And it definitely did, and a lot of the speed did help you as well. But did you expect this race to fall under green flag strategies? I know I mentioned in this broadcast about last night's Coke Series race, how that ended up on green flag strategy. But for this race, were you expecting a lot of this racing to happen? Did you have this plan in place, or did you kind of figure this race would end up differently?
Normally every time I race this race, the beginning is always real hectic, and if we could just get spread out, it usually runs pretty green. But I felt like, we got that early caution there. I was really just trying to get settled in somewhere, and we came down the pit road, and everybody just followed us, and I knew with us being able to kind of lead or go on green there at the end, we could spread it out there later. And once we got spread out, it's about what I figured. These guys are pretty good racers. There shouldn't have been too many cautions in this race.
Well, it definitely wasn't only that one to open this race, but it goes green all the way at the end for you, and you take away your first win here. I believe the first time we see you in this series, so a first-time entrance and a winner here tonight must feel good. But before we let you go, Brandon, to celebrate here in Michigan, is there anybody you'd just like to thank and give shout-outs to, any teams, sponsors, or anybody else that makes it happen for you?
Oh yeah, definitely the Rowdy Motorsports team. We put a lot of time in practicing, and Matt, CJ, Ken, those guys are great. Like I said, appreciate you guys for putting this on, and Tyler for doing this. It's always a lot of fun racing this league.
Well, it certainly was a lot of fun watching you on track. We'll let you celebrate here from the Irish Hills and that Tony Stewart throwback. Congratulations from Michigan, and of course we look forward to seeing you for the rest of the season if you're able to make it. But from now, congratulations from Michigan.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you.
As Brandon Banks, the driver of the number 20, and the driver who ends up with the checkered flag at the end of it all, leading 67 laps en route to his first 4-wide Racing Cup Series victory. Then we move on to the driver in second, but the driver who did take a checkered flag last week, and that was Nicholas Vizzuti in the 75, got it up in Martinsville, got up the win, and being able to be here at the end at Michigan to be able to take away a second place finish. And down here with Nicholas Vizzuti on pit road, and Nicholas, this is now coming off of a lot of the short track prowess you've held this season, but tonight you ran a pretty decent race, but it was all dependent on that final call. What was your decision there on that final one to kind of cut things short, and how did you expect this one to play out?
Yeah, it was a lot of green flag racing, so just getting around lap cars was pretty key near the end there, and made the call to short pit. We probably could have done it a little bit earlier, but I wanted to make sure I was good to the end. I actually slid through my box, so we gained about a couple seconds, but not quite enough to hold second place. And then I guess second ran out of fuel. I'm not sure. Saw him come down to the apron. But it was a good race, man. Had a lot of fun transitioning from the short track over to the 2-miler here, and glad to see the big field we got. And you don't have to stay up till midnight.
Oh, well, certainly. I mean, a shorter race here in Michigan, only one yellow to start. But I think most importantly, in the bigger picture, you did sign up for the Dash for Cash qualifier. This was the race to get things happen. And now at Atlanta, you have a shot to win some cash prizes now at the end. You finish in the top 4, and you finished right in the midst of it all with the other qualifiers around you. So what's going to be that motive there now that you've qualified, and now you can set your focus to Atlanta where you'll be able to win some money along the way?
Yeah, it's fun to qualify. We got some good guys in this league, and glad for all the donations that come in. So it'll just be fun to race with a little extra incentive, and especially have some extra stuff to race those guys in particular for. Well, we'll see how it goes.
Certainly very exciting, and I know you're obviously running for the championship, so maybe getting some money, getting some of that momentum, heading for the playoffs certainly could be good news for you guys. But certainly a phenomenal run here at Michigan to end it off. But before we send you off, before we go to Pocono next week, is there anybody you'd just like to thank, any teams, sponsors, or anybody else that makes it happen for you here?
Not really this week. Just like to thank my teammates at 7X, Forrest, John, and Dustin for turning out this week. We got all 4 of us, and thanks everyone for everything they do for this league. And thank you for broadcasting.
Well, we certainly appreciate it, Nick. Congratulations on your second place finish. And of course, I know next week is going to be another fair challenge. Tricky Triangle, 2.5-mile oval. Certainly going to bring a lot of fun. And of course, we hope to see you there. And we wish you the best of luck. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Always looking for a new challenge.
As Nicholas Vizzuti, driver of the 75, able to win last week at Martinsville and able to capture second at the end of 115 laps and able to qualify for the Dash for Cash. So certainly helps a lot. I think everybody in the top 4 should have that good news headed their way. We'll look to third place where your current points leader sits. Kyle Benson in the number 4 machine ends up once again with another top 3 finish, and we'll bring Kyle in once more. I think we've talked to you a lot throughout this season, Kyle, with the finishes you've had so far. The consistency seems to pour on for you. How did you get it done here in Michigan where things have certainly strung out and was a way different race from Martinsville last week?
Yeah, pit strategy. That's pretty much my number 1 key was this week. Because with Michigan tires and just how the draft works, it's very finicky and just kind of had to wing it half the time, and really wished the arrow was super strong here today. If you get 2 cars lined up, you can just pull away from a single car, about 2/10 a lap or something stupid like that. So it was kind of just not trying to get in my own head, trying to get good pit stops and trying to make the time on pit road so I can do it out on the racetrack with fresh tires.
You definitely do. And I did ask Nicholas Vizzuti this not too long ago, because you in the top 4, along with Banks, Vizzuti, and Bailey, you guys all qualify for the Dash for Cash. So you guys are all eligible for a monetary incentive when you come to Atlanta. I know there's a couple races in between then, from here and now, but what's going to be the strategy here? I know you've already racked up a lot of these finishes. You're the current points leader. You're sure to probably extend this lead a little bit more over Werner and Launsauger, but is there going to be a special mindset from here on out? You think you're going to carry the same things you've carried, and even in the Dash for Cash, continue to do what you've been doing so far?
Same thing, different day, my friend. Whatever I can do. Just being consistent. Consistency is my number 1 goal this year, and this is what I've been doing all year. So if I can just keep my consistency and just try to keep my head out of where the sun don't shine, I'll be all right.
Well, it's only worked out for you so far, but here's a different challenge. You go from a 2-mile track tonight, 2.5-mile track that's not Daytona or Talladega. You go to Pocono, a rather different track. I think probably one of the more unique we see this entire season. What are your thoughts about going there next week and how you think you'll perform?
Well, let's hope I don't look for turn 4 in the wall. So we're gonna hope we don't find turn 4. But yeah, just kind of it's Pocono's a mixed bag. I know it's a bit of a it's sometimes I know some races can be a bit of a wreck fest. I know some can go green, so I'm hoping it can be like a green kind of race. But yeah, Pocono is actually a lot of fun. A lot of people don't think it's a lot of fun, but it's different. That's why I like it, because like the flat turn 3, the tunnel turn, and the really banked turn 1 is very unique, and it's kind of close to my state. You know, I mean, that's kind of my home track, I'm gonna call it for this season. So just kind of do what I usually do. If I can get a top 5, it's great. If I can get a top 10, it's even better.
I think a lot of momentum currently rides on you right now. I can agree with you. Tunnel turn as a sim racer is a lot of fun, using the throttle, of course, the brake there, and especially in these cars with the downforce you have is a lot of fun. But out of here, 3rd place finish, and now your thoughts about Pocono. But before we let you go here on this 3rd place finish, is there anybody you want to thank, any teams, sponsors, or anybody that makes it happen for you on the sim and in this league?
Boys at Big Fast Racing, Austin Reedy, Tyler Murray, Tyler Warner, Jaden Gimbel. We had Bailey coming here tonight. It was a lot of fun to race with. Yeah, and just Roman Long, those guys, everybody at Big Fast. It just kind of, that's about it. I mean, 4Wide itself, 4Wide starting to get some more drivers back, which is a good one. So just trying to get some more drivers. But yeah, I mean, just everybody at Big Fast, 4Wide Racing itself, the people that make 4Wide Racing go, and yeah, that's about it.
Well, Benson, we certainly appreciate the time, and of course, we thank you for joining us. And again, congratulations on another 3rd place finish this season. I think we've been talking almost each and every week with the finishes you've been putting up, and of course, current points leader shows that, reflects it in the points. So congratulations here for Michigan. Of course, we wish you the best of luck when we go to the Tricky Triangle next Wednesday night.
All right, thank you.
As Kyle Benson, driver of the 4 machine, ends up 3rd at the start-finish line to end this race. And you probably would expect, we talked to the 41 of Justin Mons, and unfortunately just losing the fuel at the end of it all. And also got to give props to him. What was a phenomenal race on his end from the Michigan International Speedway, and only hoping we see him more from here on out from Michigan. But that does it here for our interview section of tonight's broadcast of the 11th race of the 4Wide Racing League Cup Series from the Michigan International Speedway. As we've talked with a couple of the drivers, our next week's race will be at the Pocono Raceway, the Tricky Triangle, a 2.5 mile trial, as you may call it, with the tri-turns that they have. 70 laps going to take place April 7th next week at about 9:10 p.m. Eastern. You can catch the action right here on MaxSpeedTV from here on to the end of the 4Wide Racing Cup Series season. So on behalf of everybody at the 4Wide Racing League, that everybody that makes it possible as a part of the Race Council, Austin Reedy, Craig Lautensager, Roman Long, Matt Roberts, Nick Vizuzzi, and of course the league owner Tyler Murray, and from all of us at MaxSpeedTV, my name is Kenneth Bueno, saying good night from the Irish Hills. We'll see you at the Triangle. That's maybe a little bit tough to tame, not in Darlington's words, but we'll be at the Triangle next week for round number 12.